A happy Jerusalem Day to everybody. I'm very happy to be here on this occasion with you. I hope you feel the same about me. The Temple Mount is occupying about 1/6 of the total area of the old city of Jerusalem. It has an area of 144,000 square meters, which equals the territory of several Old Testament cities. The site is the largest religious compound of the ancient world. The Temple Mount doesn't look like a mountain today. It looks like a flat platform, but it is a dome-shaped hill, which got changed under King Herod the Great some 2,000 years ago, when he put the gigantic hill, dome-shaped hill, into a bottomless box and filled up the gap between the slopes of the hill and the walls of the box. The walls of the box are actually retaining walls behind which there is earthen fill. The very famous Wailing Wall, or the western wall of Temple Mount, is nothing else but one of the walls of this enclosure. In any case, the Temple Mount marks the northernmost summit of the city. The city at that time, when the Temple Mount got its importance, was outside the city, outside the limits of the city, and today it is the other way around. The Temple Mount is within the old city, and the ancient core of Jerusalem is lying outside the walls of the old city. In any case, the Temple Mount is the most important archaeological site in Israel, maybe in the whole world. The Temple Mount has enormous religious importance, literary importance, historical importance, but nevertheless, it is also the most important archaeological site in this country. The archaeological importance is recognized by everybody, but miraculously, Jerusalem, which is the most excavated place upon earth, does not have This is an aerial view of the Temple Mount, and Jerusalem, which is the most excavated place upon earth, does not have in its history any excavation that took place upon the Temple Mount or within the Temple Mount. It is true that 19th century scholars surveyed the Temple Mount, both French and German and British scholars surveyed the Temple Mount, surveyed the above ground structures and some of the subterranean hollow areas, but none of them carried out a pre-initiated dig that would discover the layers one after the other. Not even one single potsherd was ever published from inside the Temple Mount. It is also true that we know a lot about the surroundings of Temple Mount, and at the bottom part of the picture you can see the vast excavation which was carried out along the southern wall of the Temple Mount. Also around other parts of the Temple Mount there were excavations, but nothing within the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the place which, according to tradition, is the first one created by the Almighty, and the rest of the world was created around it. According to another tradition, the earth for creating the first of mankind, Adam, was taken from the Temple Mount. Temple Mount obviously is connected also to the story of the binding of Isaac, and it is connected to King David, who purchased there the threshing floor of the last pre-Israelite ruler of Jerusalem. And upon that site, the first temple of Solomon was built. Later on, replaced by the second temple, after it was standing there for 400 years and destroyed by the Babylonians. The second temple lasted through the Persian, the Hellenistic, and part of the early Roman period, and was replaced by a magnificent structure built by Herod the Great in the 1st century BC. That building was destroyed about 100 years after it was built. It was destroyed by the Romans, by Titus, as a result of the first revolt, or the Great Revolt against the Romans. The place then was occupied for a short while by the Romans, and in the 2nd century, a pagan shrine of the Capitolian Trinity of Gods was built upon the site of the temple. In the early Christian period, there were probably some ecclesiastic buildings upon the Temple Mount, and in the end of the 7th century, after the Muslim conquest, the place became sacred to Islam, and several holy sites of the Muslims were built there, and some of them exist until this very day. In the picture, you can see on the upper part the reconstruction of the Temple Mount in Second Temple period. In the center is the temple proper, with its several courtyards. There is a large piazza surrounding it. To its north is the fortress Antonia, built by Herod the Great. And the building with the long reddish roof is the Royal Basilica, or the Royal Porch, pillared porch. The Royal Basilica, again built by Herod the Great. At the bottom of the picture, you can see the Temple Mount in the time of the Umayyad dynasty, somewhere in the beginning of the 8th century. In the center, you see the Dome of the Rock. To the bottom of the picture, you can see the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and outside the building, leaning against the southern wall of Temple Mount, is a complex of palaces built by the Umayyad dynasty. Please notice also the large subterranean structure in the southeastern or right bottom corner of the picture, which is known by the name of Solomon's Stables. The Second Temple period reconstruction is shown here. You can see the very famous Robinson's Arch leading to the Royal Porch, or the Stoa Basilicae, as it was named in Greek. You can see the whitish structure of the temple, and you can see the entire length of the western wall of Temple Mount with 4 of its gates, 2 on the higher level and 2 on the lower level. Those gates are named after American British scholars of the 19th century who studied the vicinity of the Temple Mount. In the southern wall of Temple Mount, just underneath the Stoa Basilicae, or the Royal Basilica, you can see 2 gates, which were the main entry gates into the temple's enclosure in Second Temple period. This map shows you in brown all the areas which were subjected to archaeological investigation, all the excavated areas of Jerusalem, and you can see that actually there is no place within the basin of the old city of Jerusalem, which was not checked by the spade of the archaeologists. On the other hand, you see the white area, which is the Temple Mount, which was never touched by the spade of any archaeologist ever. So our project of sifting is the first source of finds that originate from inside the Temple Mount. This aerial view shows you the praying plaza of the western wall of Jerusalem, and next to it in a bluish color you can see the entrance into the Temple Mount enclosure for most of the visitors today, the so-called Gate of the Mugrabians. In the center of the Temple Mount, you see the Golden Dome, or the Dome of the Rock, which marks the place of the temple proper. The structure itself is one of the most magnificent buildings upon earth. The building was inaugurated in 691 by the Umayyad ruler Abdul Malik, and didn't change much since then, though the outer appearance with the bluish tiles decorating it witnessed many restorations. You can see on the right-hand side the grayish dome of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the whitish or cream-colored area to its right is the roof of the large subterranean structure of Solomon's Stables, which is the place where from most of the earth we are sifting through originates. You can see here the building of Solomon's Stables. The building was not built by Solomon and was not meant to be stables at all. Otherwise, the name is okay. The building includes 13 vaults, which are supported by 12 rows of pillars. And the building in its present day shape dates back to the 11th century, the time of the Fatimid dynasty, the Shiite dynasty of Egypt, and it was turned in the 12th century into stables of the Crusaders, the Knights Templar. They turned the building into their stables. Nobody else before them, neither the Muslims nor the Jews, would dare to bring in horses to the sacred compound of the Temple Mount. In any case, the Solomon's Stables was neglected for many years, and you can see on the left-hand side picture the piles of dirt accumulated in the building. These are piles of rubbish. The building turned in 1996 into a gigantic mosque, one of the largest mosques of the Near East, and that was the result of some political developments in the 1990s, which stem from the policies of Bill Jefferson Clinton and the White House at that time. And this is a picture showing you the work carried out, especially on weekends in the 90s, inside the structure, subterranean structure of Solomon's Stables. This is the work which was carried out there by Muslim volunteers coming from Israel, especially during weekends when they were free and when the Israeli police did not avoid them from carrying out the work there. The status quo upon the Temple Mount changed drastically in the 1990s. Not only a gigantic mosque was added, but there was added also another mosque named the Ancient Aqsa, which was built into a subterranean passage passing underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the Al-Aqsa Mosque here, and this is the view of Solomon's Stables. as it looks today after the restoration work carried out. In 1999, another atrocity was committed upon the Temple Mount when a large pit was dug with heavy machinery to the north face of the Solomon Stables. This was done under the excuse of an emergency exit, and actually the pit, which was dug there to a depth of 12 meters and a length of 40 meters, created a barbaric damage to the archaeology of the Temple Mount. They removed from there approximately 9,000 tons of earth. This is the building of Solomon Stables, where from part of the material comes. And this is the pit in front of the building with 2 of the vaultings, 2 out of the 13 vaultings. And in the background, you can see the dome of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the southern wall of Temple Mount. The pit dug by heavy machinery day and night created a severe damage to the Temple Mount, and the soil was taken out by lorries through the northern part of the Temple Mount. What the sifting project does is actually turning the damage into something more beneficial, into learning something about the past of the Temple Mount. Of course, all the material that we have is disturbed. It is mixed up badly, and we do not have the finds in their original contexts. But nevertheless, this is much better than not having anything. So we have a large number of finds, approximately 500,000 finds, and those finds, they are very significant, and sometimes even changing our concept of the history of different periods in the long historical story of the Temple Mount. Even if the material lost, let us say for an exaggeration, lost 90% of its scientific value because it is jungled up and because it is all messed up, then we have 10% left, and 10% is much, much more than 0%. In any case, you can see here the large pit, which turned into the main entry. Instead of an emergency exit, it turned into the main entry into the subterranean illicitly built mosque, which was inaugurated in 1996. And on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see the eastern wall of Temple Mount, the inside of it. Against it is leaning an arch. That arch is part of an Islamic building destroyed by the people who carried out the work, the Waqf people, or the Islamic Trust of the Temple Mount. These are the lorries moving the soil out of the Temple Mount at night in 1999, in November of that year. In any case, in the soil, already then there were seen some finds, and at that time I was teaching a class about the archaeology of Jerusalem at Bar Ilan University next to Tel Aviv, and there I stressed the 10th century, which was the focus of many studies in those years. 10th century BC is the time of David and Solomon, in which the Temple Mount began to to gain its importance in history. This is the pile of dirt which was removed from the Temple Mount. The main part of it is in the Kidron, or was in the Kidron Valley, and some parts of the debris were dumped in other places in Jerusalem as well. The place was traced by some of the students who were in my class. Two of them were good students, and it occurs sometimes, not necessarily, but it happens sometimes. Aran Yardeni and Tzachi Dvira tried to find out whether the teacher is right in what he says, and went out to find out whether there is any 10th century BC pottery in the piles of dirt which were removed from the Temple Mount. They carried out a survey on the dumps, and they collected some finds. And in the finds, among the finds, there were different periods represented. They came to my house in Jerusalem. I didn't know in the beginning that it is from the Temple Mount, but I began sorting the material out and found out that there are different periods represented there from First Temple period and on. This is an aerial view of the southeastern corner of Temple Mount. The whitish area is the roof of Solomon's stables. The area surrounded by the red circle is the olive grove, which got a paving in the early 2000s. And by that paving, they lowered the surface, and the soil from that activity of lowering the surface is also sifted by us. You can see the eastern wall, along which outside there is also a paved road which leads towards the Dung Gate and the Wailing Wall. The atrocity which was carried out in November of 1999 created an outcry of wide circles in Israeli society. This is a petition which was published on the first page of several daily papers then, and it has the signatures of leading figures in Israeli society. Topping them is the mayor of Jerusalem, the legendary old lion of Jerusalem, Teddy Kollek. And in addition, there are people, leading figures from the academic world, from the world of law, from military circles, from the arts, and from literature. There were approximately 80 members of the Knesset out of 120 who signed the petition. This petition created the Committee for Protection of Antiquities in the Temple Mount, trying to avoid further destruction of antiquities upon the Temple Mount. This map here shows you at the right bottom part the building of Solomon's stables. The grayish area is the area of the large pit excavated in 1999, and the purplish areas are the areas of the olive grove where from some of the material we are sifting through originates. In the center, of course, you can see the building, the octagonal building of the Dome of the Rock. This is a picture taken during the work carried out by the Waqf, the Islamic Trust, in the large pit. You can see two of the arches, two of the vaultings opened, and on the left-hand side you can see different layers superimposed one on top of the other with slightly different colors, showing you that there was some order in the accumulation and there was true stratigraphy there, which was destroyed by the activities of the Waqf. Actually, our work contributes a lot to the understanding of the ancient topography of that area of the Temple Mount. This drawing here dates back to the 15th century, and it is from the work of a German monk who came as a pilgrim to Palestine, and it shows you the olive grove and the topography, which drops drastically on the left-hand side. Actually, we found out that that area was lower, approximately 12 meters lower than the present-day surface, and so we can contribute to the study of the ancient topography of the Temple Mount. That point got filled up with material dumped there from restoration works and lowering of the surface in different other parts within the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is a closed box, and no soil was brought into the Temple Mount since the days of Herod the Great. And so all the accumulation in the southeastern corner of the Temple Mount dates back from the time of the medieval period up to modern times. On the other hand, that material includes finds that date back to the earliest days of the Temple Mount, as it has within it material collected in different other parts of the Temple Mount. Altogether, we have approximately 15,000 years of history represented in the finds, the vast majority of which is from 10th century BC and on up till modern times. This is the picture showing you the activity of the removal of the soil, which occurred after we convinced the Bar-Ilan University authorities to ask for permission, and after long turmoil and ups and downs in the receiving of the license, which finally arrived in 2004. Since 2004, we carried out the work. First, we moved the soil to a more secure place into the Zurim Valley. And in the beginning, we had some mechanical sifting, which didn't work out well. It caused severe damage to the finds, and we gave it up. We, in the beginning, started already at the dumping site in the Kidron Valley. We started with some trial sections to see the superposition and to see whether there are differentiations in the type of soil in the different piles empiled there. And we came to the conclusion that there are different areas, assuming that some of the topsoil in the dump originates from the bottom of the pit excavated, and vice versa, the bottom part originating from the top of the pit. But there were more differences, and we separated approximately 30 different areas from that soil. The work included also a mapping of the debris dumped in the Kidron Valley, and you can see here the different dumps of the area. This is the site in the National Park of Zurim Valley, where we carried out the sifting between 2004 and 2017. In 2019, just a year ago, we started the work in a new site, the Mitzpeh HaMasuot, or the Masuot lookout on Mount Scopus, which is a magnificent point, and you are all invited to see and to participate in the very interesting and epoch-making work. At the sifting, we developed different methodologies. One of them is in the central picture at the top, showing you the dry sifting, which comes first. In the dry sifting, we remove the modern garbage, which is sometimes included in the soil. We remove the larger stones, and we divide the material into buckets. The buckets then are soaked with water. You can see it on the right top picture. And then at the bottom left picture, you can see that the soil is showered through a screen, and the wet sifting is ensuring us that we discover approximately 100% of the finds, something which would not be possible without the wet sifting that dissolves the mud that got adhered to tiny artifacts. In addition to the wet sifting, we developed also a methodology of separating the finds properly according to their materials. Bones, glass, pottery, which is the very valuable source of information, special stones, mosaic stones, and metal objects. These are the 6 categories. In addition to those, we have special finds which are registered at the moment of discovery and are computerized in a significant manner on the spot. In addition to that, we have a very important added value to the project, that is the educational added value. The place is open for all ages, for all types of people, and even people without a background in archaeology can enjoy touching the artifacts, which are thousands of years old and originate from the most important site in the history of the world. This is a picture showing you some volunteers headed by a judge from Kentucky that arrived to the sifting site. We have had until now approximately 250,000 participants originating from all parts of the world, originating from all countries of Europe, all countries of North and South America, and even from the Far East. People from all facets of society in Israel also participated, starting with school children and ending with homes for the aged. We have had groups of soldiers, high school kids, etc. The people enjoy the touching of the soil, the sacred soil of Temple Mount, which is very significant because the very soil of Temple Mount and the cherishing of its dust are mentioned in the book of Psalms. You can see here the black buckets with the soil from the Temple Mount. People with the green shirts are the staff members who guide the many hundreds of volunteers coming to participate in this important project. This is a new site where from a marvelous view is given to the Judean wilderness on the eastern side, and here to the city of Jerusalem on the western side. The site itself was a site of battle, most bitter battle of the Israeli paratroopers against the Jordanian Legion in the Six-Day War in 1967. At the site, we have now all the facilities we need, and it is a magnificent site. We have participants from the age of 4 up till the age of 94. And the younger people who find certain important finds may find their names posted on the front pages of daily papers. In the year 2011, we opened up a lab in another neighborhood of Jerusalem, in which there are 20 people, approximately 20 people, dealing with different subjects according to their expertise. We have had in the sifting over 6,000 ancient coins, and those coins are treated by numismatic experts. There are experts of Jewish coins, there are experts of Roman coins, there are experts of medieval coins, of Islamic coins, and their work towards publishing scientific publication of all these treasures of finds is to be completed soon. The coins are actually tiny historical documents. They have dates, they have artistic information, religious information, economic information, and other data which can be extracted from them. A very important component of the finds we have in the sifting is the pottery. We have hundreds of thousands of pieces of indicative pottery, which is datable. And eventually the statistics of the pottery and the types of vessels and the dates will give us some idea of the changes and historical procedures through which the Temple Mount went in the different periods. We're going to have a statistical analysis of all the pottery types and all the different periods. The statistical methodologies which were developed by the staff of the Temple Mount Sifting Project enabled us also to reconstruct, in some cases, the original context of finds. So we have here an advantage to the quantitative value of the finds. Unlike surface surveys, which collect from the surface finds without a context, but they serve to reconstruct the history of a whole site, they are actually very few. Unlike those few finds from archaeological surveys, we have enormous quantities of pottery, which enables us to reconstruct some of the contexts of the ancient pottery. Most of the work is carried out in the lab, which is carried out in the lab is sometimes contributing more than the discovery itself, because the study into the depth of the significance of the finds, the statistical analysis, the drawing and finding all the parallels and computerizing the material helps us to create a comprehensive unknown history of the Temple Mount. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Concerning possibility of excavations along the southern wall of the Temple Mount, the answer is that most of that area was excavated by the late Benjamin Mazar and later on by his granddaughter Eilat Mazar. There is no Jewish cemetery south of the Temple Mount. East of the Temple Mount, there are vast Jewish cemeteries, and I do not see any possibility of excavations taking place there.
Any further questions? There's a question, did we find any gold coins?
The answer is yes. We have several gold coins. Some of them are Islamic coins of the Abbasid dynasty. Some of them are Crusader coins. We have had some gold coins, yes. We have even the gold coin of Napoleon III from 1858, which is a 19th century coin. That gold currency was in circulation in Jerusalem in the 19th century.
Okay, so thank you for listening. We're going to go into a recess now until 10 minutes past 6. So you're welcome all to join us back, and I'll give the next lecture about the archaeology of the Temple Mount during the first temple period. Thank you, Gary, for this introduction, and looking forward to see you all again at 20 minutes from now. Thank you all.